Way too much fun today. The clock is ticking as the House scrambles to keep the government funded by the end of the week. A shutdown is looking more and more likely. Lawmakers are expected to return tomorrow to work on at least 4 appropriations bills to fund much of the government. Joining me right now is Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson. He's the House Republican Conference Vice Chairman and a member of the Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for joining me this morning.
Hey, Maria. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, so how does this play out? We know there are a handful of scenarios that are being discussed, but you've got a handful of Republicans stopping a continuing resolution and wanting a focus on these individual bills and at a lower cost, by the way, than the top of the COVID emergency. How do you think this plays out?
I think we're making good progress. You know, the Rules Committee worked hard over the weekend to set up this procedural vote, as you indicated, so that we can bring 4 of the big appropriation bills to the floor over the next few days. And I think there's a great chance that we can move this forward. Look, no one on our side desires a government shutdown. What we all desire is a change in the way Washington works, you know, with the reckless spending and the corruption and the woke and weaponized agencies and the open borders and all the negative ramifications from all this. We have a $33 trillion federal debt, which you and I harp on all the time. We have to change the trajectory in the way that government works. And this is kind of the ugly, sometimes ugly fight, the regular process, regular order of how you work through all that. So it's taken a while. It's taken too long, right? But we're here, and I think we're making good progress, and this will be a big week.
That's great. Well said, Congressman. Do you think that you could actually move 4 appropriations bills in 5 days?
I think it's possible. Now, we have the looming deadline, of course, of September 30. That's the cliff. But what we're trying to do is, as hard as it is, as difficult as it is move forward to put ourselves in the best place to negotiate ultimately with the Senate and the White House on spending for next year. That's what all this is about. And so there's a lot of maturations and twists and turns, but I think that we're going to be in a good position. If we can pass those 4 bills, then I think Speaker McCarthy intends to put maybe a short-term stopgap spending measure to allow us a little more time to do the remainder of the bills. But the point is, and I think everybody on the Republican side agrees, that the more of these appropriations bills that we can pass with our priorities and our cuts, then the better we are to go into those negotiations ultimately.
And the priorities are what? Tell me that, because I know that a lot of lawmakers have different priorities. Many do not want to see more money go to Ukraine when, in fact, we have a wide open border. Others do not want to see money go to Jack Smith so that the administration can persecute its political enemies. And others want to make sure that we have the proper number for the Defense Department, given this scary world that we're in.
Yeah, that's a good list. All of the above. What we're trying to do is flex our muscles in the House and use the power of the purse. It's the greatest power that we have. And we have a fiscal responsible approach to this, fiscally responsible approach. That's what the Republican Party brings to the table. And so we're using the appropriations process to advance those goals, many of those that you listed. You know, everybody is frustrated. We had our big hearings with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, this past week in the House. And, you know, my constituents, I come back home for a couple of days, and they're so frustrated because they don't see accountability. And the people are demanding that we adjust the funding of these agencies. If they can't uphold the basic constitutional rights of the people that they're designed to protect and serve, then maybe they don't need the giant levels of funding that they have. We have to get their attention one way or the other. And that's the serious discussions and negotiations that we're having behind the closed doors and then bringing it to the floor for a vote.
And you were so good with Attorney General Merrick Garland last week. You grilled him. I want to take a look at one of the most important questions that was asked by you last week. Watch.
Have you had personal contact with anyone at FBI headquarters about the Hunter Biden investigation?
I don't recollect the answer to that question, but the FBI works for the Justice Department. It's
I'm sorry. You don't recollect whether you've talked with anybody at FBI headquarters about an investigation of the president's son?
I don't believe that I did.
Congressman, thank you for that. I also asked Fox's Life, Liberty, and Levin host, Mark Levin, about that testimony yesterday when I spoke with him on Sunday Morning Futures. Here's Mark Levin's take. Watch.
The idea that the Attorney General of the United States watches television, sees a deal breakdown in front of a judge, doesn't say to the head of the criminal division or the public integrity division or his deputy attorney general or associate attorney general, I need to be briefed on this. The idea that he doesn't know what's taking place with Joe Biden, with Hunter Biden, with Donald Trump, he is a flat-out serial liar.
Your thoughts. What were you thinking when he said he couldn't come up with the right words? He said, I can't recollect.
But what was I thinking? Come on.
Yeah.
Mark's exactly right. I mean, no one trusts Merrick Garland, and by extension, they now no longer trust the Department of Justice. They see a two-tiered system of justice. They see this weaponized, politicized agency, and that's why 65% of Americans now don't have a favorable view of the Department of Justice itself. They have a negative view of it. That's a dangerous thing in a constitutional republic. We have to have the people's trust to keep our system going, and this Attorney General, I think, has corrupted it. And then he comes before us with this smug attitude. He memorizes 4 talking points and repeats them over and over and over. That's why people are frustrated, Maria. That's why we're talking about this in the appropriations process, because he knows that we don't have the bandwidth to impeach him, even though he probably deserves it, because all the attention is now on the president himself. And so he just sits there, goes through the hearing, and pretends as though, he's immune to all this. We have to get control of these agencies.
How will that play out in the appropriations process then, Congressman? Because I know that the FBI wants a whole lot of money for a new headquarters. They want it to be larger than the Pentagon. Is that going to fly in the appropriations process?
I certainly hope not. I mean, we have many amendments made in order to the spending bills, and you're going to see the priorities reflected in those votes that are coming up on the floor this week. The headquarters is one of them. These travel junkets that these high-level, top-level FBI officials, DOJ officials take. They go to conferences in Hawaii and all the rest. We don't think they deserve all of that, because they're not performing their most basic function, and that is to uphold the rule of law. That's a fact that's indisputable. And so we have to use every power within our means and our control to try to bring them to heel effectively. In the Judiciary Committee, we have oversight responsibility over DOJ, and if the Attorney General comes before us and refuses to give answers, what more are we to do? So you're going to see our effort to negotiate a change in the way those things are funded.
And, of course, the GOP is holding its first Biden impeachment inquiry hearing on Thursday. What should we expect from that?
Well, the chairman of oversight, Jamie Comer, my good friend, is going to lay out a refresher course for everyone of where we are, how far we've come, and what we found. We have credible allegations and now mounting evidence of very serious crimes on the part of the Biden family, and then the connection to the president himself, bribery and pay-for-play schemes and all the rest. And we know under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution that, bribery, by one example, is a listed cause for impeachment. The president shall be removed from office for such. So when credible allegations come forward with whistleblowers, email, text messages, bank statements, all the evidence we have gathered up, we have no choice but to proceed to the inquiry phase to follow that truth where it leads. That's the job that we take under the Constitution and by our oath to finish the job, and we're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the GOP and Jim Jordan in particular and Jamie Comer have been talking about the president's bank records. Do you anticipate you will have access to President Biden's bank records? Will you be able to actually see whether or not money flowed into his account directly?
Well, that's the next step, and that's why we need the inquiry phase, because, as you know, it gives us advanced subpoena authority. Right now, they waive things off because under normal circumstances, as you know, the Congress only has the power to do an investigation for a legislative purpose. We're way beyond that now. We're not looking to pass a new law or strengthen a law. We're looking at outright corruption all the way to the top, to the White House itself. And so we need the advanced subpoena power to be able to obtain the remaining records that we need to connect the last couple of dots. I think it's there. That's our suspicion, and we'll find out. But that's what the inquiry phase is all about.
Congressman, we'll be watching all of that. Thanks very much. A very informative interview this morning, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.